How are adults supposed to learn to drive stick for the first time? It doesn't seem likely to me that you'll wear out the clutch while you're learning. If that were probable, everyone who learns would be getting their clutches replaced right away. Normally, you learn it at the driving school to get your driver license. The fault in their argument is not that the learner is no good, it's because the teacher is inadequate. It is, in fact, quite easy to learn how to use a clutch, and once learned correctly, it's actually quite hard to do it wrongly because a sense of mechanical sympathy will not let you. It's simply about learning the feel of the bite point and getting the art right. If you drive now, you know not to just mash the brakes to the floor every time you use them, and don't floor the gas every time either. Find a driving tutor who can teach you, but a manual car, and show your friends that they are the ones with a problem. There's probably as many people who drive with a clutch as there are who only learned auto, so several million. In the UK, manual cars are the most common, so we pay for driving lessons. Yeah, there's wear tear on the driving instructors' cars, but that's partially why lessons cost a bloody fortune. Their cars are constantly being driven by learners all day, every day pretty much. But a clutch won't be worn down just by one person learning to use it. I don't know where you live, but maybe you can find an instructor to teach you. You would have to pay though. Another option would be to buy a really cheap manual car. Just any old shitbox that'll let you learn how to drive manual. Then nobody can whine about the clutch, haha. Bought my first manual car and learned to drive it by myself late evenings and nights. I used my uncle's old car. Later on, I taught my mate to drive in my old car. Didn't have any clutch problems. Take lessons. Oh hell no, y'all wear out the clutch's code for I don't want you to crash my car or I cannot bother. You not really going to wear out the clutch tbh. Gotta just be very convincing that you wanna learn and that y'all follow instructions. It's really not that hard, and most people just have these ideas about burning out a clutch cause they had a bad one on their old 1994 Tacoma 22R and broke down on the side of Route 9 in 2008. It would be pretty hard to wear out a clutch unless you were doing it on purpose. For example, the one in my car's done over 100,000 miles. Yeah, it'd have to be 1,000 times worse with it, which is absolutely unimaginable if you were trying to don it right, even if you took a little bit of time getting used to it. The main reason not to learn in a friend's car is that they'll teach you all their bad habits and probably get a good chink of the law wrong too. Find a driving instructor and learn in their car. Absolutely, driving manual is a skill like any other, and it's one that becomes second nature with practice. Concerns about wearing out the clutch are typically overstated. It's more about control and finesse than brute force. I learned in a beat-up hatchback from a friend who was patient and gave clear instructions. The key is gradual progression. Be gentle with the clutch, feel the gears, and respond to the engine's feedback. Over time, I've taught a couple of others using the same approach and never had clutch issues. It's really about investing the time and having a good grasp of the basics. And who knows, in a few years when manual cars are harder to come by, you might appreciate the foundation you've built learning to drive stick. Plus, it can be a great conversation starter or even a fun anecdote to share down the line. Learn to drive on the roads in an automatic, then learn manual. That way, you're only learning one thing at a time. I had to do this before purchasing a Mini Cooper. Called a bunch of driving schools until I found one that offered manual lessons to licensed drivers who already drive automatic. Had a 2 or 3 hour lesson with the owner of the school as my driving instructor. I was happy with the lesson and instructor, but hated car that I learned in. It was some kind of race car, a Mustang, Camaro or Corvette, and the visibility was terrible since the windows were so tiny. After those few hours, the rest was 35-45 minutes driving to work, and then back again every day. I would stall out a few times, then only once or twice, and then even less. Maybe 2 months, and I noticed after a long, tiring day at the office, I just found myself at home in the driveway. I didn't even remember the drive, and I realized it was because it was perfectly uneventful. I made it home without any mistakes. I learned how to drive at 29 at a driving school. He explained for 5 minutes the basic theory and then we just went into the city. It seems more frightening when you think about it than when you do it. But man, the first time I went in the highway I thought I was gonna die, haha. Edit. I'm in Europe and everyone learns on manual cars. I've never heard the comment on the clutch. Just when my boyfriend told me that I can't use his BMW BCS, the clutch is too hard for me, and I believed him, lol. I assume you are in the US. I'm in the UK, and pretty much everybody learns to drive in a manual car. The clutches in driving school cars last just as long as in any other car. I know this. My dad was a driving instructor for years and he never had to have a new clutch in any of his cars. Myth: clutches wear out super quickly. A driving instructor's car whose job it is to have its clutch grinded by students still lasts years. You'll put a little wear on the clutch, but it rounds to zero besides that. 1. You could pay for a few lessons. 2. You could buy a manual. Keep your auto for a few weeks while you learn, trade in for a manual, and borrow an auto if you need to go somewhere before you're adequately proficient, rent etc. Driving a manual isn't hard at all. You just need to get 10-20 HRS of practice in before you're safe. It'll always feel awkward until you own one and get fully comfortable. Almost everyone can learn it, even the least coordinated. It's not a big deal. This is so crazy to me. Manual cars are the most common for us in my country, while automatics are more expensive and seen as the luxury go-to, therefore slightly less common. For the most part, almost the entire country can drive manual. A driving instructor? Go to a driving school. They don't have to, because they've learned that when first getting lessons. Unless you're American, of course, rusty faultism. I learned to drive stick back in the 80s on my dad's car and didn't burn out the clutch. People are nuts. I teach someone in my car. They aren't going to wear the clutch down that quickly, plus clutches are made to be replaced. I just get a better clutch when I go to replace it. If they legit kept launching my car, then I probably tell them to keep their fucking foot off the accelerator and only use the clutch softly. Then as they got used to finding that sweet spot, then introducing the gas pedal. If they destroyed my clutch, I just ask that they contribute to the repair bill. I can do the work myself. YouTube videos of people explaining it driving around. It's 2 plates, one is clutch and one is motor clutch, and the plates are apart. All disengaged motor plate spins freely, rev it like a race car or change gears, even clutch out plates together motion. You want those 2 plates to rub together for a little bit to be smooth, transitioning momentum from motor plate to clutch plate, down to back wheels. Too fast and it stalls, too slow is just lame, you will figure it out lol. Just bought a manual and learning now. The few people I know with a manual, their cars are either too nice or they no longer own it. Today was my first real lesson with my friend and I was shitting bricks for the first 30 minutes. Around 2.5 hours in, I was comfortable enough to drive the few blocks back to my house, but I still had him park for me. He doesn't own a manual, but he's driven his friends a few times and is pretty decent. It's kinda early for me to say anything since I've only driven a few hours, but it's kinda both easier and harder than it looks. Is renting a car an option where you live? 'Cause that could help.